Good day, everyone, and welcome to Cricket South Africa's Level 3 umpiring course, brought to you by Western Province Cricket Umpires Association. Today is lecture number 3. My name is Tom Mokorosi, and as usual, I am joined by my co-presenter, Abdullah Steenkamp, for today's lecture. The meeting protocols are on screen. I'm sure you are all aware of them by now. Just a note as to what laws we're going through this evening. I will be taking you through laws 20 and 21. Then I'll be handing over to Abdullah, who will be taking us through laws 23 and 24. Just a reminder that in Cricket South Africa's Level 3 umpiring course, we do not go through all 42 laws of cricket. We only go through the laws that are examined in Cricket South Africa's Level 3 exam, and we only focus on the parts of the laws that are examined. So that is why you will see that we do not go through every part of every single law, but we do go into detail on those laws and the parts of the laws that we cover. Today we have a few quiz questions for you, so get ready to type your answers into the chat box as I go through the quiz questions during my presentation. So we start with Law 20, and Law 20 is the dead ball. You will remember from level 1 and from level 2 that there are two types of dead balls. When the ball automatically becomes dead is the first type that we're going to look at. And then we're also going to look at when the umpire needs to call and signal dead ball. So let's look at when the ball automatically becomes dead. The ball automatically becomes dead when it is finally settled in the hands of the wicketkeeper or of the bowler. And that phrase, finally settled, is a very subjective phrase. We need to, as the bowlers and umpire, decide when the ball is finally settled in the hands of the wicketkeeper or of the bowler. And the very last clause of this particular part of the law, for me, is the best way to determine when the ball is finally settled. We will also have a video with a quiz question as to whether the ball is finally settled in the wicketkeeper's hands or the ball is still alive and a run out is affected. The ball automatically becomes dead when a boundary is scored. Nothing further can happen in that particular delivery. The ball becomes automatically dead when a batter is dismissed. In baseball, you have what's called a double play, where you can dismiss more than one batter on the same delivery. But in cricket, that is not possible. Why? Because as soon as one batter is dismissed, the ball becomes dead and nothing further can happen in that particular delivery. The ball becomes dead whether played or not. It lodges or becomes trapped between the bat and person of a batter or between items of his or her clothing or equipment. The lodging is actually in the next clause. The ball automatically becomes dead whether played or not. It lodges in the clothing or equipment of a batter or the clothing of an umpire. And we've got an entertaining video to show you an example of this particular scenario. If a player returns without permission and comes into contact with the ball automatically becomes dead. 5 penalty runs will be awarded to the batting side. And Also, if there is an instance of illegal fielding, again, the ball will automatically become dead, and 5 penalty runs will be awarded to the batting side. In both these instances, the ball shall not count as one of the over, and because not all players are aware of these laws, it is good practice, even though the ball becomes dead automatically, that either umpire shall call and signal dead ball to make the players aware that the ball is automatically dead. When the ball goes past the wicket keeper and hits the protective helmet placed on the floor behind the wicket keeper, again, the ball automatically becomes dead, but it is good umpiring practice for either umpire, whoever sees it first, to call and signal dead ball when the ball hits that helmet placed behind the wicket keeper on the floor. This is because not everybody will see the ball hitting the helmet behind the wicket keeper. When the match is concluded, the ball automatically becomes dead. Nothing further can occur. So let's have a look at an example where the ball became lodged in the clothing or equipment of a batter. And not all players are aware of this law. So again, even though the ball automatically becomes dead, it is good umpiring practice for either umpire. Probably the bowler's end umpire is the best option to call and signal dead ball in this type of scenario.
For a comedian. So yes, it got stuck in the pad. They're asking, and he's trying to catch it. And then he drops the ball.
So you can see there, whether jokingly or in reality, the wicketkeeper wanted to claim a catch. The ball was lodged in between the thigh and the flap of the pad of the striker, and so the ball was automatically dead. To avoid all confusion there, either umpire could have called and signaled dead ball. If the wicketkeeper had managed to run that striker out, as he attempted to do right at the end, of course, it would have been not out because the ball had automatically become dead a few seconds ago when it got lodged between the flap of the pad and the thigh of the striker. Very importantly, neither the call of over nor the call of time is to be made until the ball is dead. Do not, as an umpire, be in a hurry to call over. Wait until the next point is clearly visible to you. Law tells us that the ball shall be considered to be dead when it is clear to the bowler's end umpire that the fielding side and both batters at the wicket have ceased to regard the ball as in play. And as I mentioned earlier, whether the ball is finally settled or not is a matter for the umpire to decide, and that being the bowler's end umpire. So as mentioned, do not be in a rush to call over after the last ball of each over. Wait until the body language of all of the fielders in the fielding side and both batters suggest that they all feel that the ball is dead. So, first quiz question for today. Is this striker run out by the second slip fielder, or do you consider the ball to be dead, therefore not out? Please type into the chat box Q20.1, and then run out or dead ball. Okay, I'm going to play the video and you can all make your decision. Okay, let's watch the replay slowly. The batter misses the ball. I'm going to play it again without sound while I describe to you what has happened. So the ball is left by the batter, or he plays and misses, and the wicketkeeper collects the ball, passes it to second slip. Second slip sees that the batter has walked out of his crease because it's the end of the over, and the second slip fielder throws the wicket down with the striker out of his crease. That is the appeal for run out. You need to decide, is the striker out run out, or was the ball finally settled in the wicketkeeper's hands? Would you consider it dead at that stage, therefore ruling out any further action after that? Put in your chat box Q20.1 run out or Q20.1 dead ball. So we've looked at when the ball automatically becomes dead. Let's now move to when either umpire needs to call and signal dead ball. The following circumstances apply. When intervening in a case of unfair play, either umpire shall call and signal dead ball. When there is a possibly serious injury to a player or an umpire, either umpire shall call and signal dead ball. And the important two words in this clause are possibly serious injury. Okay, keep that in mind. Our next quiz question is based on this particular clause. When either umpire leaves his or her normal position to consult with his or her partner, they shall call and signal dead ball, collect the ball from the fielding side, and then go and consult. When one or both bails fall from the striker's wicket before the striker has had an opportunity of playing the ball, either umpire shall call and signal dead ball. And the best umpire for this particular scenario to call and signal dead ball is the striker's end umpire. Why? Because quite often, where a striker takes his or her stance might be blocking the view of the bowler's end umpire from seeing the bails fall from the striker's end's wicket. But whoever does see the bails fall from the striker's wicket before the striker has had the opportunity to play the ball needs to call and signal dead ball. If the striker is not ready for the delivery, and if the ball is delivered, the striker makes no attempt to play at it, then the bowler's end umpire shall call and signal dead ball. Afterwards, we need to ascertain why the striker was not ready, and we need to remind the striker that they need to be ready when the bowler is at the top of his or her mark. Otherwise, we can warn the striker for time wasting. But importantly, it is not for the bowler's end umpire or the striker's end umpire to decide whether a striker is ready to receive the ball or not. It is for the striker, if they feel they are not ready, to move away from the delivery and not play at it. And then we will call and signal dead ball as the bowler's end umpire. And then we will find out why they moved away and were not ready for that delivery. Okay. So quiz question 20.2. Is Adam Perori out hit wicket, or should we call and signal dead ball when the ball hits his helmet due to a possibly serious injury? It all happens very quickly. You need to decide in a few seconds whether you are going to allow the hit wicket dismissal to stand, or you're going to call and signal dead ball for a possibly serious injury. Here goes the video. Please make your decision in the chat box.
It's hit his helmet, and I just this has gone. Worried about the height and whether it was a no ball, but neither of the umpires have signalled a no ball. That's hit him in the helmet, and surely over the batsman's shoulder.
Well, I can't believe this. I really can't. Now, is he in that normal stance? They're having a chat, the umpires. This is hitting fair on the side of the helmet in a normal stance. Well, boy. And back onto the stumps. The question is the height, and this is all you can consider. It's gone above shoulder height and hit him about the ear. And he's going. Adam Perori's on his way. They've had their chat, the umpires, and they've decided. Now that's gone back onto the stumps. It's ripped the strap open, broken the strap on the helmet, and that is an amazing and defining moment. Perori gone for 8, 223 for 7.
So just a heads up, in England, they have a playing condition that if the ball hits the helmet of a batter, it automatically becomes dead, no matter the impact, whether it is soft or a very thunderous blow. However, we are not using the playing conditions of the ECB. We are going according to law to answer our quiz question. Would you give Adam Perori out hit wicket, or would you call and signal dead ball because of a possibly serious injury and therefore not out? We will go through the correct answers for all of these quiz questions after the presentation before we take questions from the floor. If the striker is distracted by any noise or movement or in any other way while preparing to receive or receiving a delivery, either umpire shall call and signal dead ball. This shall apply whether the source of the distraction is within the match or outside the field of play. Once again, the ball shall not count as one of the legal deliveries in the over and needs to be rebowled. If there is an instance of a deliberate attempt to distract the striker, or there is a deliberate distraction, deception, or obstruction of either batter, either umpire shall call and signal dead ball. There will be an award of 5 penalty runs to the batting side. The runs in progress, as well as the runs completed, will count, whether or not they have crossed for the run in progress. The ball shall not count as a legal delivery in the over and needs to be rebowled. And 41.5 is the only part in the law where the batters will decide who will face the next delivery. So harsh punishment for the deliberate distraction, deception, or obstruction of batters by any member of the fielding side. If the bowler drops the ball accidentally before delivery, either umpire shall call and signal dead ball. Usually it is the bowler's end umpire who will make that call in this particular instance. If the bowler throws the ball towards the striker's end before entering his or her delivery stride, either umpire shall call and signal dead ball. The striker's end umpire, if the ball is thrown from behind the bowler's end umpire, is in the best position to make this call. If the ball does not leave the bowler's hand for any reason other than to attempt to run out the non-striker, then the bowler's end umpire shall call and signal dead ball. Either umpire can call and signal dead ball, but the bowler's end umpire is in the best position to do so. If either umpire is satisfied that the ball in play cannot be recovered or retrieved, then they shall call and signal dead ball. This is the evolution of the lost ball law before 2017. This part of the dead ball law was on its own as lost ball. Effectively, if, for example, the ball is hit into the outfield and a fielder goes to try and field it, but there is a snake very close to the ball, and the fielder or none of the fielders are brave enough to go and retrieve the ball, then either umpire, seeing this situation, can call and signal dead ball to prevent the continued running by the batters while the ball is not retrieved. If the bowler's end umpire considers that either side has been disadvantaged by a person, animal, or other object within the field of play coming into contact with the ball, they shall call and signal dead ball. However, if both umpires consider the ball would have reached the boundary regardless of the intervention, then the boundary should stand. The bowler's end umpire would call and signal boundary 4 in that instance. So let me give you an example to illustrate the difference between these 2 points. If the ball is hit so hard and a dog runs onto the field and intercepts the ball half a meter from the boundary, and if it wasn't for that dog intercepting the ball, it would have gone on to cross the boundary, then the bowler's end umpire shall call and signal boundary 4. You don't actually call boundary 4, you just signal boundary 4. If, however, the dog was inside the 30-yard fielding restriction circle and the shot wasn't hit that well and the ball hits the dog, there could potentially be a run out. There could potentially be 2 runs missed by the batting side because of the ball hitting the dog. Here we would consider that either side has been or could potentially be disadvantaged by the ball hitting that dog. So we call and signal dead ball. If the striker attempts to play the ball, but no part of his or her person, whether grounded or raised, remains within the pitch, then the bowler's end umpire needs to call and signal dead ball. Remember, the width of the pitch is not just the return crease, it's 3.05 meters or 10 feet wide, a little bit wider than the 2 return creases. If either umpire is required to call and signal dead ball under any of the other laws not included above, they shall do so. And we will be covering quite a few of these in later lectures. Last law that I will be taking you through this evening is the no ball law, Law 21. And again, we're only covering the parts of the law that are examined in Cricket South Africa's Level 3 exam. The one part covered is a bowler breaking the wicket in delivering the ball. Either umpire shall call and signal no ball if, other than in an attempt to run out the non-striker, the bowler breaks the wicket at any time after the ball comes into play and before he or she completes the stride after the delivery stride. And of course, the ball must be delivered. Then we call no ball. This breaking of the wicket shall include any clothing or other object that falls from the bowler's person and breaks the wicket. Next section of the no ball law that we're looking at is the ball bouncing more than once or rolling along the ground. Law tells us that the umpire shall call and signal no ball if a ball which he or she considered to have been delivered without having previously touched the bat or person of the striker bounces more than once or rolls along the ground before it reaches the popping crease or pitches wholly or partially off the pitch before it reaches the line of the striker's wicket. Quite importantly, when a non-turf pitch is being used, this will apply to any ball that wholly or partially pitches off the artificial surface. So last week, Abdullah and I were delivering training in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, and the field that we were using for demonstrative purposes had an artificial cement pitch with a mat on it, and the width of that pitch was exactly 2.64 meters, which is the width of the bowling crease from the inside edge of the one return crease to the inside edge of the other return crease. So it is not the prescribed width of a pitch, which is 3.05 meters. So law is telling us here that if you are playing in or on one of those artificial surfaces, if the ball lands off that artificial surface, then you will call and signal no ball, even though it might have been within the 3.05 meter width, because the width of the artificial surface is less than 3.05, you use that 3.0, you use the width of that artificial surface as the width of your pitch for this particular law. Who is in the best position to discover or to easily see if the ball bounces more than twice before the popping crease or it pitches wholly off the pitch but before the striker's wicket? The striker's end umpire is in the best position to see the length of the landing of the delivery. Okay, in terms of the line of the landing of the delivery, obviously the bowler's end umpire is in the best position. So some communication is required. You need to have pre-match signals that you have agreed that you will use on the field to communicate with each other to show where the ball has landed so that the correct call can be made. last bit of the noble law that I'll be covering is the ball causing the striker to leave the pitch or ball coming to rest in front of the striker's wicket. Law tells us that if a ball delivered by the bowler comes to rest in front of the line of the striker's wicket or is so far from the pitch that the striker would need to leave the pitch to attempt to play the ball without having previously touched the bat or person of the striker, the bowlers and umpire shall call and signal no ball and immediately call and signal dead ball. So, having listened to those 3 points about the no ball, quiz question 21.1 is based on this video. What should the bowlers and umpire signal in this scenario? So I will describe it as it happens. And you need to type into the chat box Q21.1 and the signal or signals that the bowlers and umpire needs to make in this scenario. So the bowler bowls the ball, it bounces once, twice, thrice, and the striker is off the pitch attempting to play at the delivery. Let's watch it again. Bowler bowls the ball, bounces once, second time off the pitch, third time off the pitch, and it reaches the striker's popping crease well off the pitch, and the striker is also well off the pitch attempting to play at the ball. What should the bowlers and umpire signal in this scenario? Question 21.1. Please put your answer in the chat box now. We will go through these answers after Abdullah's presentation. So that's it from me for now. I will now hand over to Abdullah to take us through laws 23 and law 24. Over to you, Abdullah.
Thank you, Tom. Good evening to you and good evening to the rest of the attendees. I'll be covering 2 laws, law 23 and 24, and a bit of 25. And under 23, I'm only going to focus on one subsection of this law, and it is leg buys, when our leg buys are awarded, and when leg buys are not awarded. So let's look at the conditions that needs to be in place when leg buys are to be awarded. First condition is the ball that was delivered needs to strike the person, anywhere on the person, or the protective equipment of the striker. So that's the first condition. And then there's 2 criteria that needs to be met for leg buys to be awarded. So first condition, anywhere on the person the ball needs to hit, or any of the protective equipment of the striker. Then the first criteria that needs to be met, striker needs to attempt to play at the ball with his or her bat. And the second criteria, the striker needs to try to avoid being hit by the ball. So if the ball strikes anywhere on the person or the protective equipment, and the striker attempted to play at the ball with his or her bat, or the striker tried to avoid being hit by the ball, then now the law say we can allow leg buys in this case. Even if a no ball was called, that no ball will count, and if all the above criteria or the criteria in point 1 is met, then leg buys to be awarded. So when will leg buys not be awarded? If the umpire considers that the striker did not attempt to play at the ball with his or her bat, or the striker did not try to avoid being hit by the ball. So just the opposite of when leg buys are to be awarded. So leg buys not to be awarded. Striker did not attempt to play at the ball, with his or her bat, or the striker didn't try to avoid or try to take evasive action. If this is the case, leg byes then not to be awarded. And then the law goes on further and tell us the umpire, the bowler's in umpire needs to call and signal dead ball, and that call only to come if or once the ball reaches the boundary or at the completion of the first run. So you'll often find at any level, whether it's club level, I've even seen it at provincial level in South Africa, as soon as the striker doesn't offer a shot or to play at the ball, if you can just visualize the scenario, striker shoulders arms, ball hit the pad, the ball then ricochets to third man, and then the two batters decide to take a run. So immediately once they take a run, the fielders will say, umpire, umpire, dead ball, dead ball. They're not allowed to run. Yes, fielders, you are correct. They're not allowed to run, but the umpire needs to wait to make that call of dead ball. And I'll tell you now why the umpire needs to delay that call. So that call of dead ball only to come if the ball should reach the boundary. Let's say no shot offered, ball hits the pad, ricochets to the third man boundary, and then goes over the boundary. So as soon as the ball then goes over the boundary, the ball now becomes dead. Now the umpire needs to call and signal dead ball. The other scenario is umpire to call and signal dead ball at the completion of the first run. So once the strikers or both batters completed the first run, ball hits the pad, no shot offered, ricochets to third man, batters then run. As soon as that first run is completed, then the bowler's in umpire needs to call and signal dead ball. So why only upon the ball reaching the boundary, or why only upon the completion of the first run? And the reason for that is the law allows the fielding side the opportunity to run out either of the batters. So as per the law, since no shot has been played in our examples, and the ball then, let's say, ricochets to third man, the law does not allow for runs to be taken. But if due to not knowing the law, the batters do decide to run, the law gives the fielding side the opportunity to run out either of the batters. And that is why you need to delay your call of dead ball only once the ball reaches the boundary, or in my second example, only once the two batters completed that first run. Because while they're still busy with the first run, the fielding side still has the opportunity to run out either of the batters. So the law allows for this. Not supposed to run. If they don't know the law, it's not the fielding side's problem. If they do decide to run, there is a small window period for the fielding side to run out either of the batters. So bowlers in umpire, in my second example, only to call and signal dead ball upon the completion of the first run. So if they do decide to take a second run, you need to intervene, and it happens quite often. The ball ricocheting to wide third man, they take a single, and now they want to run a second run. You, the bowlers in umpire, needs to intervene because the law instructs us upon the completion of that first run. That is where you need to call and signal a dead ball. So while that first run is still being completed, the law gives the fielding side the opportunity to run out either of the batters. And if a run out occurs before the completion of that first run, that run out is valid because the law gives the fielding side that small window to try to run out either of the batters. So just to emphasize again, you only call and signal dead ball upon the completion of the first run. So while that run is still in progress, the fielding side still has the opportunity to run out either of the batters. So now in my second scenario, where I said no shot offered, ball hits the pad, ricochets to third man, the batters then decide to take a run, and then upon the completion of that run, you now, as per the law, you now need to intervene. The bowlers and umpire needs to intervene and call and signal dead ball only upon the completion of the first run. But you see, the law tells us that leg bias is not to be awarded. So now the batters completed a run. We've now called, or the bowlers and umpires now called and signal dead ball. So now there's additional steps that the bowlers and umpire needs to do, because we now know that that leg bias is not to be awarded. So they've completed the first run. Bowlers and umpire called and signal dead ball. So now the law tells us those leg byes are not to be awarded because the striker did not attempt to play at the ball with his or her bat. So the additional steps that needs to be followed is we need to disallow all runs to the batting side. Return any not out batter to his or her original ends. So in one, let's say the no shot offered, ball ricochets from the pad to the third man boundary, batters decide to run and they complete one run. We now know that umpire to call and signal dead ball upon the completion of the first run. You need to disallow those runs because they are not to count. And now the law tells us, please return the batters back to their original end. So you now need to tell the striker, you need to go back to the striker's end, and you need to ask the non-striker to please come back to the non-striker's end. So that is in the scenario where neither of the batters is dismissed. In the scenario, and we've just heard that there is the small window period for the fielding side to run out either of the batters. So in the scenario where a batter is run out, let's say the non-strikers run out. So if you can visualize this example, batter hits the ball, shoulders arms, ball hits the pad, ball then ricochets to the third man boundary, and they decide to run. Point fielder runs towards the ball, picks it up. Batters, while still busy with their first run, they have not completed their first run. Point fielder size at the wicketkeeper's end, direct it with the non-striker a meter short of his or her ground. Now the law allows for this run out, and the reason is they're not supposed to run. So if they didn't know the laws and they run, so there's the small window period that the law allows the fielding side to run out either of the batters. So this run out happened in this window period. They have not completed the first run. So Sai came from point to the wicketkeeper's end, non-striker meter short of his or her ground. Striker and umpire needs to give the non-striker run out. Then the law say return any not out batter to his or her original end. So we need to disallow this run, so this run will not count. Not out batter to go back to the original end. So now what you need to do is the striker needs to come back to his or her original end, i.e. in this example, striker needs to come back to the striker's end. The incoming batter, the new batter, will then go to the non-striker's end. If there was a no ball, that needs to be signaled to the scorers. Any award of 5 penalty runs to be awarded, there's one exception. And this is if the ball hits the protective helmet belonging to the fielding side that was placed behind the wicket keeper. So what we are busy covering is the scenario where no shot was offered, ball gets hits the pad, ricochets to third man, they then batters take a single. Let's say they complete the single. So we now know that those runs not to be allowed. To be allowed, you need to send the batters back to the original end. So now, and then also in terms of penalty runs, any 5 penalty runs to be awarded except one. And this is protective helmets. If the ball should hit the protective helmet that was placed behind the keeper. So to explain bullet point number 4, I'll use an example, and I'm going to explain this exception. Any 5 penalty runs to be awarded in this scenario except one. Bowler delivers the ball, striker shoulders arms, ball then ricochets to fine leg. Batters decides to take a run. They then take a run, square leg fielder runs around, picks up the ball, trying to run out the non-striker. Try to run out the non-striker at the wicketkeeper's end. The throw is a bit wayward. So instead of going to the stumps, and this wayward throw now goes and hit the fielding side's helmet that was put behind the wicketkeeper. So we know that, and we've covered this in level 1 and 2. If the ball hits the fielder's helmet that was placed behind the wicketkeeper while the ball is still in play, as soon as the ball hits the helmet, it automatically becomes dead, and 5 penalty runs to be awarded to the batting side. That is what we've covered in level when we did level 1 and 2. But there are certain instances in the law where the law tells us that if the ball should hit the helmet that was placed behind the keeper, where that 5 penalty runs to be not awarded. And this is one of those cases where leg pies, when leg pies not to be awarded. And let me again go through the scenario, and the scenario will explain how this law works. Striker shoulders arms, ball goes down to fine leg. Square leg runs around, picks up the ball, try to sigh at the wicket at the stumps at the wicketkeeper's end. Throw, being a bit wayward, goes and it strikes the helmet that was placed behind the keeper. So now what happens? And in this instance, this is one of those instances where the law tells us, yes, the ball now hit the helmet behind the keeper. Yes, the ball automatically becomes dead as soon as that ball hits the helmet. And anything that happens after that is irrelevant. So as soon as the ball hits the helmet, ball automatically becomes dead. But usually, if the ball hits the helmet while the ball is still in play behind the keeper, we would usually give 5 penalty runs. But this is one of those instances where those 5 penalty runs do not be awarded to the batting side. So just to summarize this, if the ball hits the helmet behind the keeper, in most instances it would be ball becomes dead, 5 penalty runs. But there are certain instances if the ball should hit the helmet behind the keeper, and in this case where leg bias is not to be awarded, didn't offer a shot, and then fielder throws the ball against the helmet, those 5 penalty runs not to be awarded to the batting side. Under Law 24, I'm going to only focus on one subsection, and that subsection is when the fielder is absent or a fielder leaves the field of play. So before I go into this law, just briefly, this law was slightly changed many years ago. But before this law was changed, what used to happen is fielders or players used to abuse this law. So how did they abuse this law? They would fake injuries. They would come to the umpire and say, umpire, my hamstring. Umpire would then allow a substitute. That fielder would not be injured. That fielder would go to the dressing room and put his or her feet up and go and relax. So players abused this law many years ago. The lawmakers identified this, that because of the abusement of this law, where because when it comes to substitute fielders, if a fielder is injured or ill, the umpires to allow a substitute. Players knew this, so they started abusing the law, faking injuries, going off and not being injured, just to rest, to put their feet up, before coming back on to bowl maybe a second or third spell. It's not just bowlers or fielders. Batters used to abuse this law as well. You'll find the opening bat with the side being, let's say, 8 or 9 down, knowing it's close to the end of the innings, they would fake an injury, go off to put their feet up to rest before the start of their innings because he or she is the opening bat. Lawmakers identified that players abuse this law, so they then tweaked the law slightly. Let's have a look at what changes they made to this law. And then I'm going to go through the changes that the law made. I'm also going to go through a bit of practical method how to handle this when you're on the field of play. So let's have a look what changes the lawmakers made. So if a fielder fails to take the field at the start of the match, or the fielder needs to leave the field of play due to an injury, the law say no problem, umpires to allow it, but that fielder needs to inform either of the umpire the reason why they're leaving the field. So, but the practical application. So, fielder comes to you. Let's say it's fielder comes to you and say, Abdullah, my hammy, I need the physio to have a look at my hammy. You'll say, okay, no problem. You'll then take out your notebook. You'll write down the fielder's name. Let's say it's Cindy, hamstring. And then importantly, you need to write down the time that Cindy left the field of play. Let's say, for example purposes, she left the field at 10:30. You inform your colleague, Cindy going off, hamstring, 10:30. Then, before Cindy leaves, you tell Cindy that, Cindy, before you return, please inform either of the umpires before you come back onto the field of play. And that is very important, and we'll see when we do point 2 and 3 why it's so important. And in a few slides' time, we will see the punishment that the law gives if a fielder returns without your permission to the field of play, touches the ball, and will go through the punishment. I think it's quite a severe punishment if a fielder returns to the field of play without permission. But the law is clear, and that's why you go through, and I'm giving you a bit of practical tips as well. So Cindy comes to you, informing you, umpire, I need to have my hamstring checked. Okay, no problem, Cindy. You write down her name in your notebook, a reason why she has left the field, hamstring, and then important time that Cindy left, 10:30. And then you tell Cindy, before you come back onto the field of play, please let me know. You also tell Cindy's captain, the fielding captain, I see Cindy's leaving the field to have a hamstring looked at. Please, when she returns, let me know when she returns. We're going to see now why it's so important that we need to know when Cindy returns. So point 2 tells us, before Cindy can come back on the field after getting treatment from the physio, Cindy can only come back onto the field of play with the consent of the umpire. So either umpire can give consent. So usually what happens, the Cindy will, after getting treatment, will stand on the boundary. Our players would usually wave, umpire, can I come back on? You'll wave them, yes, they can come back on. So now they need the consent of the umpire to come back on. Why do they need the consent of the umpire? And we'll see now why it's important. Umpire needs to know when Cindy is coming back. Why does the umpire needs to know? The umpire needs to write down the time that Cindy's came back onto the field of play. And we'll see in point 3 why that time when she came back is so important. So either umpire to give consent. And we'll see in later slides the punishment if a player comes back onto the field of play without either of the umpires' permission. We'll see there's quite a harsh punishment for a player coming back onto the field without the consent of the umpire. So now Cindy comes back, or she came back. You need to write down the time she came back. And just for example purposes, I just want to illustrate how the law works. Let's say Cindy came back at 11 o'clock. So Cindy was off the field for 30 minutes. So you need to write Cindy back 11 o'clock. Now you need to calculate how long Cindy was off the field of play. So Cindy left at 10:30. She came back at 11 o'clock. So again, just for example purposes, to show how these 3 points work. So now the law tells us that before Cindy is allowed to bowl, she needs to be the same amount of time that she was off the field. She needs to be on the field for that time, up to a max of 90 minutes. I'll come back to illustrate how this max of 90 minutes work. Let me just show you how point 3 works practically. So in our example, Cindy left at 10. Cindy came back at 11 o'clock with the umpire's consent. So now what the umpires needs to calculate is how long Cindy was off the field of play. So just for this example, Cindy was off for 30 minutes from 10:30 till 11. So now point 3 is telling us before Cindy can bowl again, she needs to field. She needs to be on the field of play for that same amount of time that she was off. So Cindy was off for 30 minutes. So before Cindy can bowl, she needs to field for 30 minutes. So when can Cindy bowl in my example? Cindy can bowl again at 11:30. For now, just for example purposes, I'm just using this easy example to illustrate how point 1, 2, and 3 works. There are other factors that needs to be taken into account. We're going to get to that in a slide or two. But just to show you how point 1, 2, and 3 works, Cindy needs to field for the same amount of time that she was off. She was off for 30. So you will now tell Cindy, you were off for 30 minutes. You can bowl again at 11:30. Cindy's captain, Cindy was off for 30. She can bowl again at 11:30. So that is how the law works. Cindy needs to serve, and the wording that the law uses, penalty time. Cindy needs to serve penalty time. She needs, and this penalty time is time that Cindy was off the field while play was in progress. And that is the definition of penalty time. Only time when Cindy was off while play was in progress. If play was not in progress, that cannot be counted as penalty time. So just to emphasize again, the definition of penalty time is time that an injured player was off the field of play, playing time that fielder was off the field of play. And there's a max of 90 minutes according to the laws of cricket. So how does this max of 90 minutes work? Let's say Cindy comes to you at 11 o'clock informing you that she's need to have a hamstring checked out. Cindy then only returns at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Again, just for example purposes. So we've now covered these 3 points, and we now saw that point 3 tells us Cindy needs to be on the field of play for the same amount of time that she was off before she can bowl. So how long was Cindy off? Let's say Cindy was off for 3 hours. Don't know the exact time. Let's say she left at 11. She came back at 4 o'clock. So Cindy was off for about, let's say, 3 or 4 hours. So this is where the law, the max of 90 minutes comes in. Even though Cindy was off for 3-4 hours, she does not have to serve that 3-4 hours penalty time. The max penalty time that you're allowed to serve is 90 minutes. So if Cindy came back onto the field at 4 o'clock, she can bowl again at 17:30, 90 minutes later. So these are the small changes that the lawmakers brought into it. Yes, you're allowed to go off if a player comes to you and say he or she is injured. You need to just do the following steps. Write down name, reason, and time. tell the fielder, please tell me when you coming back onto the field of play. And the reason why they need to tell you, because you need to make a note when they're coming back. And we'll see in later slides the punishment if a player comes back. This is now the injured player coming back without informing you and then actually touch the ball. There's quite a harsh punishment. And then after the player inform you, he or she is back, you then now need to calculate how long the player was off. And the player then needs to be on the field for that same amount of time that he or she was off before he or she can bowl again, up to a max of 90 minutes. That is how the law now works. So players that are trying to fake injuries, yeah, no problem. We'll allow them to go off. I mean, we're not medical doctors. If a player comes to you telling you, I need to have my hamstring looked at, no problem. You can go off fielder. But they need to know that they need to serve penalty time before they can come back again. Those days are gone where they go off for 3 hours, come back and bowl immediately. Those days are gone. Also, penalty time doesn't disappear. Lots of players think penalty time disappears. You'll find even at provincial cricket in South Africa, it spans over 4 days. So you'll have a player going owing penalty time on day one. And the players think, day two, that penalty time will disappear. Day two, I will start afresh. No. Unserved penalty time gets carried forward. It gets carried forward into the next day, into the next innings of this particular match. It doesn't disappear. Players needs to serve all the unserved penalty time before they are allowed to bat or to bowl. So gets carried into the next day, gets carried into the next match. Obviously doesn't. Into the next innings. It obviously doesn't get carried into the next match. Also, you'll often find players going off without having served all the penalty time. You'll add up all those unserved penalty time. Players who needs to serve all penalty time that they unserved penalty time before they allowed to bowl or to bat. Scheduled intervals, and this is very important when it comes to calculating penalty time. Scheduled intervals. What are examples of scheduled intervals? Close of play on day one, the period of close of play on day one, the start of play on day two. That's a scheduled interval. Interval between innings. That's a scheduled interval. Your interval for meals, i.e. your lunch and your tea, scheduled intervals. Your drinks interval, it's a scheduled interval as per the law. And your any other agreed interval. That's the fifth example of a scheduled interval. So now the law tells us when it comes to scheduled interval, you must not add a scheduled interval to any unserved penalty time, nor does a scheduled interval count as penalty time served. I'm going to give you an example to illustrate how point number 5 works. Let's say in our test match, play started at 10 and lunch is at 12 o'clock. At 11:40, Sunday goes off. 11:40 goes off, lunch is at 12 o'clock. And we take lunch at 12 and Sunday's still off. So how long was Sunday off? At 12 o'clock when lunch started, Sunday was off for 20 minutes. We know lunch is 40 minutes in test match cricket, so from 12 o'clock till 12:40 will be lunch. As the players walk back onto the field after lunch at 12:40, here you see Cindy walks with her side onto the field, and Cindy tells the umpire, I'm back. So how much penalty time does Cindy owe us? Remember, she left at 11:40. Lunch was taken at 12 o'clock. So at 12:40, you need to inform Cindy as you're walking back onto the field, and you need to inform a captain how much penalty time she owes us, when can she bowl again. So Cindy left at 11:40 till 12, that was 20 minutes. So how much penalty time does Cindy owe us at 12:40? Cindy owes us only 20 minutes of penalty time. Why only 20? You cannot add the scheduled interval, your lunch interval in this example, to any penalty time that Cindy owes us. The definition of penalty time is playing time that the injured fielder was not on the field of play. During lunch interval, was there anyone on the field of play? Was there play in progress? No, everyone was off the field enjoying their lunch. So when it comes to a scheduled interval, does not get added to unserved penalty time, nor does it count as penalty time served. So in my example, Cindy only owes 20 minutes of penalty time. So Cindy can bowl again if play restarts at 12:40. Cindy can bowl again at 1 o'clock. You'll relay that message to Cindy and to the fielding captain. There are times where penalty time not to be incurred. Remember, I've covered why this law was slightly changed because players started abusing this law, fake injuries, say umpire hamstring, oh umpire my back, umpire my groin. Or in those three examples, we're not medical doctors. We're not able to see if a player tells you, yes, I've got a hamstring injury, you're not able to see that. So the law allows for substitute, but you need to serve penalty time before you can bowl again. But the lawmakers also realize that sometimes there are instances where certain things happen where players are not trying to cheat. And what are those instances? And this is where the lawmakers tell us that in the following instances, penalty time not to be incurred. No penalty time needs to be served if the following happens. If a fielder suffers an external blow, and the emphasis here is an external blow, and it happens during this particular match, and it needs to happen on the field of play. So in the first instance where no penalty time is to be incurred is when a fielder suffers an external blow during this game while play was in progress on the field of play. And the emphasis here is an external blow. I'll go through a few examples to illustrate how this works. So just visualize the bowler delivers a short ball outside off stump, striker cuts at the ball. There's a gully fielder, ball goes straight to gully. Gully attempts to catch the ball, misses the ball. Ball ricochets ricochets from the hand to third man. The fielder then split his or her webbing. Fielder comes to you saying, umpire needs to go off to have my webbing look at. You can see the blood. So this is an example of an external blow where ball went against the hand and then the player needs to leave the field to get treatment. So this incident happened on the field of play while play was in progress. In the sight of the umpires, we saw ball went against hand. Player, the hand bleeding, player then needs to leave the field to get treatment. So now because of this external blow, and it happened while the play was in progress on the field of play, that player going off, and let's say the player goes off for half an hour. Now the law tells us, because of this external blow, no penalty time to be incurred. No penalty time to be served. Player didn't try to cheat. We saw it happened where the ball hit the hand. So that player, even though he or she was off for half an hour, upon return half an hour later, that player can bowl immediately. That is what this law is trying to tell us. But an external blow needs to happen. And this is one example. In my first example, I said there's a bit of blood. Doesn't always have to be blood. Let's say ball, short leg fielder, spinner bowling, short leg fielder, striker pulls the ball goes into the knee of the short leg fielder. Fielder goes down. Physio comes off. Physio says, can we please take off the fielder? We need to treat this. We need to get some ice on it. So this is another example of an external blow. Ball went against the knee. So it happened on the field of play while play was in progress, and the umpire saw it. So external blow happening. So that player leaving to get treatment does not have to serve any penalty time. Another example of an external blow, just to show you, that's not always only ball against hand or ball against leg. It can be, as long as it is an external blow. So just visualize this example. Ball gets hit into the air. Two players converge on the ball to take a catch, and they run into each other. The catch is not taken, but both fielders, after running to each other, goes down. One fielder, because of the contact, because of the external blow with the two fielders running into each other, tells you, umpire, I need to leave the field. I need to have my ribs looked at. So that's just another example of an external blow. You saw it happen in front of you while play was in progress on the field of play. So the point I'm just trying to make is, it's not always just the ball going against the hand or the leg. It can be two fielders running into each other. But the words that the law uses is external blow. Another example where no penalty time to be incurred is if a player is not on the field of play or needs to leave the field of play for a wholly acceptable reason other than illness or internal injury. Just an example of this, in Cricket South Africa's provincial competition, you'll often find students playing in the provincial sides. Come mid-year or end of the year, they need to write exams. So end of the year, they need to write exams. And let's say the Saturday, so most of our 4-day games spans over 4 days. So it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So Saturday morning, one of the players needs to write an exam. So what usually happens is that player will get a letter from the university informing Cricket South Africa that the player is writing an exam, also put down the time and the name of the player. That letter is handed to the match referee. So the exam spans from 9 till 12 o'clock. And let's say the player gets to the field at 1 o'clock. So yes, the player between 10 and 12, the first session, player was not there. That player does not need to serve any penalty time. Upon his or her return at 1 o'clock onto the field, that player can bowl immediately. And the reason is, and this is what is covered in point 2, player was absent for a wholly acceptable reason, but it needs to be a wholly acceptable reason. Player cannot say, sorry umpire, I'm late. I was smoking behind the clubhouse. That is not a wholly acceptable reason. And if it is a wholly acceptable reason, player does not need to incur any penalty time. Earlier I mentioned player returning without, or the importance of the injured player that went off to get treatment. It's so important that that player needs to inform you when he or she is coming back onto the field of play. There are 2 reasons why it's important. The first important reason is you need to jot down the time the player comes back, because you need to calculate how long the player was off, and that player then needs to serve that penalty time before he or she can bowl again. So now the law tells us, if a player who comes back onto the field without your permission, and you know, it'd be funny, you think after telling a fielder to please let you know when he or she is coming back, they often forget, and they often don't tell you. Even if you do tell them, please tell us when you back. So if a player do return to the field of play without your permission, what happens? And the laws, you'll see there's quite a harsh punishment if the player comes onto the field without informing the umpires and then comes into contact with the ball. So now, let's say Cindy went off. You write down Cindy's name, time that she went off, and you'll tell Cindy, please let me know when you're back. You will also tell the fielding captain, please tell me when Cindy's back. Even after telling both, it happens so often in provincial cricket in South Africa. There are many times where they don't tell you when they come back. So if they do come back and they touch the ball, as soon as that player that returned without permission touch the ball, that ball then immediately becomes dead. 5 penalty runs to the batting side. There are further punishment. Runs completed by the batters to be scored together with a run in progress if they've crossed as soon as the player touched the ball. The ball not to count as one of the over, and the umpires needs to inform everyone and report this to the governing body of cricket for that particular competition. So you can see it's quite a harsh punishment if a player who comes onto the field or returns to the field without permission. As soon as they touch the ball becomes dead. 5 penalty runs to be awarded to the batting side. Runs completed by the batters to be scored together with the run in progress if they cross as soon as the players touch the ball not to count. Umpire needs to inform everyone and to report this incident. So importantly, the ball immediately becomes dead as soon as that player touches the ball. And anything that happens as soon as that player touches the ball is irrelevant. So in the scenario where a player now returned without permission, the ball gets delivered, it gets hit to, let's say, the fine leg boundary. Here you see this player that went off, now back onto the field without informing you, now picks up the ball. That player then picks up the ball, throws the ball. The throw is a bit wayward, and then it hits the helmet behind the keeper that was placed behind the keeper. So we know that usually if a ball hits the helmet behind the keeper, 5 penalty runs to the batting side. But this is again one of those instances where you will not award those 5 penalty runs. Why? Because the law tells us as soon as that player that returned without permission touched the ball immediately becomes dead. So as soon as when the ball got hit to fine leg, as soon as that player picked up the ball, that's when the ball became dead. So anything that happens after that is irrelevant. So that throw, that wayward throw that hit the helmet behind the keeper, irrelevant. Anything that happens after the player touches the ball is irrelevant because the ball became automatically dead when that player touched the ball. The last law that I'm covering this evening, before I'm going to go through 2 examples, just to show you how penalty time works. And this is the restriction on a batter commencing his or her innings. In Law 24, we've covered when a fielder goes off and a fielder needs to serve penalty time before he or she can bowl again. So that same principle applies to the batter. There's one small thing that the law adds to the batter, but we'll get to it now. But when it comes to a batter not having served all his or her penalty time, that batter needs to wait. That batter needs to wait while that innings is in progress, that same amount or the penalty time that he or she needs to serve, or the side has lost 5 wickets. This is a quick example to illustrate this. Opening, just for example purposes, opening a bat, who's their side is fielding at the time. They say the side is 9 down. The opening bat comes to you and say, umpire, I need to have my hamstring looked at. This is now 10:30. At 11 o'clock, the 10th wicket gets taken. Opening bat is still off the field of play. So when can that opening bat bat? Opening bat was off at 10:30. Innings ended at 11 o'clock. So that's 30 minutes. So that opening bat needs to wait 30 minutes before he or she can bat. Or if the side lose quick 5 wickets, then they can bat immediately, even if they still have unserved penalty time left. So opening bat needs to serve or wait the same amount of time, or penalty time that they need to serve, or 5 wickets down. I'm going to go through 2 examples just to show you how penalty time works. And in these examples, we're going to include scheduled intervals and when to take them into account and when not to take them into account. So the first example is, and when you get these penalty time examples, you need to break them up into smaller pieces. You can read it the first time as a whole, but then in doing this, break them up into smaller pieces, and that will help you easily answer these penalty time questions. So opening bowler Paul has a groin injury, comes and this happens at 10:48. The physio comes onto the field, has a look at Paul, and then tells you Paul needs to get treatment off the field, and then Paul leaves the field at 10:50. They also tell you there's a drinks break from 11:10 till 11:14. Then Paul comes back onto the field at 11:40. Lunch in this scenario is 12:20, and there's a 40-minute lunch, and then after lunch, the captain throws the ball to Paul. What actions will you take, if any, for 4 marks? And in these penalty time questions, show all your markings. Show how you got to your answer. Don't just write when can Paul bowl. Show all your calculations. Sometimes you might make a subtraction or an addition error in your last calc. But if your sums leading up to your last calc is correct, you'll get marks for those points. So this is a 4-mark question. So instead of just writing the answer, Paul can bowl again, let's say at 1:30. So let's say your answer is incorrect, and if you only wrote 1:30, you'll get 0. But if you showed the person who's marking your paper how you got to your answer, and if there is a slight subtraction error in your last calc, you can easily get 2 or maybe 3 marks. It's maybe just your answer that's incorrect. So let's break it up into smaller pieces. First thing we need to handle is at 10:48, Paul pulls the groin. He receives treatment, but only leaves at 10:50. So now, why this is important, you need to write down the time that Paul leaves the field. Yes, the injury happened at 10:48, but Paul left only at 10:50. So you need to write in your book, Paul groin, 10:50 is when he left the field. The time from 10:48 till 10:50, that 2 minutes, you'll take that into account when working out the overrate of the fielding side. So now we know Paul left at 10:50. They tell you there's a drinks break from 11:10 till 11:14. And then they tell you at 11:40, Paul returns to the field of play. And just for this example, he got the permission of the umpires when he returns. So what is the first thing that you need to calculate as soon as Paul returns to the field of play? You need to calculate how long Paul was off the field of play. So Paul left at 10:50 and he returned at 11:40. So Paul was off for 50 minutes. So now you need to inform Paul how long he was off and when he can bowl again. But we know that, and they tell us, there was a drinks break from 11:10 till 11:14. So in earlier slides, we saw that when it comes to a scheduled interval, and drinks break is an example of a scheduled interval, it should not count for or against Paul. You should not be taking the 4-minute drinks break into account. So let's just go through the first part of the answer. I said umpires, the clock only starts at 10:50. The 2 minutes will be taken as extenuating circumstances. Paul left at 10:40, returned at 11:40. 10:50, returned 11:40. That's 50 minutes off. But we know there was a drinks break of 4 minutes while Paul was off. So We know the drinks break being a scheduled break, not to count for or against Paul, you need to take off that 4 minutes from the time that that Paul was off. So Paul only owes us 46 minutes when he returns to the field of play. So 46 minutes Paul owes us. So then to go on, we know lunch is taken at 12:20. So Paul was on from 11:40 till 12:20. So how long was Paul on the field of play? Paul was on the field of play for 40 minutes. From 11:40 till 12:20 is 40 minutes. So when lunch gets taken at 12:20, how much penalty time does Paul owe us? When he returned, he owed us 46 minutes. He was on the field for 40 minutes. So that needs to be, that time that he was on the field of play needs to be taken off penalty time that he owes. So at the lunch interval at 12:20, Paul owes us. So he was on the field for 40 minutes. So at the start of the lunch interval, Paul owes us 6 minutes. How did I get to 6 minutes? When he returned, he owed us 46 minutes. He was on the field for 40. So subtracting 40 from 46, that gives me 6 minutes. So lunch was taken at 12:20. We know lunch is 40 minutes. So at 1300 hours, when play resumes after lunch, when can Paul bowl? At 13:06, Paul can bowl again. So as we walk onto the field of play, you need to inform Paul and the fielding captain that Paul can bowl. Paul needs to serve 6 minutes of penalty time, so he can bowl again at 13:06. Last example that I'm doing before handing back to Tom. John pulls a hammy at 3 o'clock and he leaves the field at 3. Tea is taken at 3:20. John returns at 15:50. At 4:10, the batting captain declares, and now we ask you, when can John bat? What is your response? Again, with these penalty time questions, break them up into smaller pieces. Show all your calculations. Don't just give an answer when John can bat. Show all your calcs. So, in this example, John left at 3 o'clock and tea is taken at 20 past. So, at the tea interval, at 20 past 3, John owes us 20 minutes of penalty time. From 3 o'clock till 15:20 is 20 minutes. So, at tea time, 20 past 3, John owes us 20 minutes. Then they tell us, so we now know tea is at 20 past 3, and with tea being 20 minutes, play will resume after tea at 15:40. But they tell us John only returns at 15:50. So John didn't come back with his side at 15:40. He only came back at 15:50. So at tea, he owes us 20 minutes. He only returns at 15:50. So we now know that this 20-minute tea interval is a scheduled interval and will not count for or against John. You cannot add it to John's penalty time. So John only returns at 15:50. So he owes us a further 10 minutes. From 15:40 till 15:50 is 10 minutes. So that 10 minutes that while play was in progress, that John was not on the field of play, needs to get added to the penalty time that John already owes us. So in total, when John returned at 15:50, he owes us 30 minutes of penalty time. The 20 minutes that he owed us at tea, and I add the 10 minutes that he was not on the field from 15:40 till 15:50. So we will tell John at 15:50, and we will tell his captain, John owes us 30 minutes of penalty time. This is now at 15:50. Then they go further and they tell us there's a declaration at 16:10. So John is the opening bat. There's a declaration at 16:10. So now the next step is, at the declaration at 16:10, how much penalty time does John owe us? So John returned at 15:50 and he owed us 50 minutes. The declaration happened at 16:10, so he was on the field for 20 minutes. So at 16:10, when the declaration happened, and he was on the field for 20 minutes, John only owes us 10 minutes when the declaration happened. So the change of innings was from 16:10 till 16:20, and we know the change of innings interval is a scheduled interval. Scheduled interval doesn't count for nor against, doesn't get added to or taken off from the penalty time that a player owes us. So at 16:10, John owes us 10 minutes. We know that the side B or John's side's innings will commence at 16:20. And seeing that John owes us 10 minutes, you will tell the captain that John can only bat at 16:30 or 5 wickets down, whichever comes first. Tom, thank you so much. That's all I'm covering for this evening. Handing back to you.
Thank you very much, Abdullah, especially for those examples which candidates can learn from and use in answering the exam questions related to penalty time. So now I'm going to share my screen again, and we are going to go through the quiz questions that I presented earlier this evening. And I see a lot of you have answered, so thank you very much for your interaction and participation on the quiz questions. They are there for all of us to learn together. So quiz question 20.1, I'm going to play it again one more time before going through the answer. So here we see that the strikers and umpire has given the batter out run out, and the batter is quite correctly annoyed. What we see here is that the wicketkeeper has taken the ball, and at the moment when he takes the ball, the striker is in his crease. And what we also need to consider is why then is the wicketkeeper passing the ball to the second slip? The only reason that the wicketkeeper is passing the ball to the second slip is for the ball to be passed back to the bowler for the bowler to bowl the next delivery. Okay, so at this point in time, both the wicketkeeper and the second slip and all other members of the fielding team, and definitely both batters at the crease, have considered the ball to be dead. The ball cannot be brought back to life simply because the striker leaves the crease and the second slip fielder sees the opportunity for a run out. The International Cricket Council has got what we call an almanac, which interprets for us the playing conditions for all ICC competitions. So this is an extract from the ICC almanac interpreting this particular law, 20.1.1.1. The ball becomes dead when it is finally settled in the hands of the wicketkeeper or of the bowler. So the law is on the left-hand side of your screen and the interpretation is on the right-hand side of the screen. The interpretation says that the ball being settled in the hands of the wicketkeeper is quite difficult to explain, but easy to judge when it takes place. And all of us who have played cricket before or have watched enough cricket in our time know that when a wicketkeeper catches the ball and passes it to any of his or her slip fielders, that is the beginning of the distribution of the ball back to the bowler for the bowler to bowl the following delivery. So at the point when the bowler, apologies, at the point when the wicket keeper passes the ball to any of the slip fielders or any other fielders in the motion of returning the ball back to the bowler, the ball is to be considered as dead. So here the ICC Almanac gives us a few factors to consider. Was there an intent or opportunity for the wicketkeeper to effect a dismissal? Well, when the wicketkeeper received the ball, there was no intent or opportunity for a dismissal. Are the batters in their ground or showing intent to run? The batters were definitely in their ground when the ball was settled in the wicketkeeper's hands, and there was never an intent to run. And finally, the last factor, which is the deciding factor in this scenario, does the wicketkeeper pass the ball on to another fielder for onward transmission to the bowler? The answer is yes. Therefore, the ball is automatically dead and the striker should have been not out in that particular scenario. I hope that clears up the debate. I see a lot of you did answer out because it all happened so quickly. And what's important is there is no definitive timeline as to when the ball is to be considered dead. It is certain factors that you need to consider, and they can happen in a split second, or they could happen in 5 seconds or 10 seconds before the ball automatically becomes dead. In this scenario, it all happened very quickly, but the ball automatically became dead as soon as the wicket keeper caught the ball and threw it to the second slip fielder. Next quiz question. Was this out hit wicket, or should we call and signal dead ball for a serious injury to Adam Perori? Let's watch the video first, and I'll take you through what the laws and some of the playing conditions say.
And so this helmet, this has gone. Worried about the height and whether it was a no ball. But neither of the umpires have signalled a no ball. Let's hit him in the helmet. Surely over the batsman's shoulder. I can't believe this. I really can't. Now, is he in a normal stance? They're having a chat, the umpires. This is hitting fair on the side of the helmet in a normal stance. Oh, boy. And back onto the stumps. The question is the height, and this is all you can consider. It's got above shoulder height and hit him about the ear. And he's going. Adam Ferrari's on his way. They've had their chat, the umpires, and they've decided. Now that's gone back onto the stumps. It's ripped the strap open, broken the strap on the helmet, and that is an amazing and defining moment. We've already gone for 8, 2:23 for 7.
So before we get into whether this was a serious injury or not, let's go through another law, not the dead ball law. Law 29 is the wicket is broken, and I have copied and pasted the relevant sections of that law into the chat box. So the wicket is broken when at least one ball is completely removed from one bail is completely removed from the top of the stumps, or one or more stumps is removed from the ground. And the wicket is broken fairly by a few different circumstances. Law 29.2.1.4 says that the wicket is broken fairly by the striker's person or by any part of his or her clothing or equipment being worn, or by any part of the striker's clothing or equipment being detached from his or her person. However, any detached equipment shall not include the striker's protective helmet or any part thereof. Okay, so according to the law in this day and age, Adam Perori would have been knocked out because the wicket was put down by his helmet. For safety reasons, the law protects a striker from being out hit wicket if the wicket is put down by only his or her helmet or any part of that helmet. So that is that part of the law. But now let's imagine that Adam Perori stumbled onto his stumps and his wicket was broken by his person, not his helmet. So now we need to decide, was this a serious injury after the ball hit Adam Perori's helmet flush on the ear? So a few things that we need to consider as umpires is first and foremost the safety of players. Head injuries, as we have seen with the death of Phil Hughes, I think 10 years ago now, we need to treat them as serious and act as quickly as possible. If a batter is stumbling after the impact of the ball onto the helmet, then that is bound to be considered a serious injury. If you see any blood pouring out of the batter's head from the impact, then we definitely consider it a serious injury. If the batter falls to the ground because of the impact to the helmet, then we would consider it a serious injury and call and signal dead ball. This particular incident, uh, Adam Perori did stumble backwards, but afterwards you could see his balance was actually quite fine for him to pick up the helmet and walk off. So in these types of situations, you do only have 3, 4, maybe 5 seconds to make the decision whether it's a serious injury or not. But do try and take in as many clues as possible. Obviously, the batter's reaction and the striker's reaction to the impact is the clues that you're going to take into consideration. But I do think, judging from how easily he walked off the field, I think I, as a umpire, would have allowed the hit wicket to take place. It wasn't a serious injury. However, we didn't go through this law. It's not relevant for level 3 Cricket South Africa, but law 29, breaking of the wicket, tells us that because the wicket was broken by the helmet of Adam Perori, he should be given not out hit wicket. Last quiz question for the day. I think you all got this right, having quickly browsed through your answers in the chat box. What should be the bowler's end umpire signal in this scenario? Let's have one more look at it. The ball bounces a second and a third time off the pitch. So that is immediately no ball. And then the striker going completely off the pitch, and the pitch here is demarcated well by dotted lines on each side of the return creases. He's quite clearly off the pitch, attempting to play a shot. Law tells us that as soon as a striker goes off the pitch, wholly off the pitch to attempt a shot, then we need to call and signal dead ball. So the correct calls by the bowler's end umpire in this scenario is to call and signal no ball, and immediately thereafter call and signal dead ball. And of course, this being a limited overs match, the playing conditions stipulate that the next delivery will be a free hit. So the bowlers and umpire would also call and signal free hit. Good umpiring practice as well, whenever there is a no ball or a dead ball in the over, is for the two umpires to reconfirm the number of deliveries remaining in the over. This delivery, I think, was supposed to be the fifth ball of the over. You can see at the bottom right-hand side of the screen, 3.4 overs were bowled. This was the fifth, but of course it was a no ball, so it would need to be re-bowled. So there would be 2 balls remaining in the over. So those are the answers to our quiz questions from this evening. Before I go into the chat box to read some of the questions you have posed while we were presenting, I want to talk through the exam logistics once again. The exam will be an online exam for everybody. You will have 2 dates to choose from, either Saturday, the 4th of January, 9 a.m. South African time will be the start of the exam, or the Monday, the 6th of January, 6 p.m. South African time will be the start of the exam. So when you make payment and send proof of payment to training@wpcua.co.za, please note or mention in that email your chosen or your preferred exam date. Is it going to be Saturday, the 4th of January, or is it going to be Monday, the 6th of January? On the 31st of December, lecture number 6, which is our final lecture of the course, we will have a full demonstration of how to have your identification confirmed and how to log into the online exam and how to start the exam. It's a totally new process that we haven't used before. So please make sure you tune in for that last lecture or you watch the recording before the exam. Note that payment deadline for the exam is on the 2nd of January at 6 p.m. South African time, the normal start time for our lectures. The exam fees, 400 rands for anyone in South Africa, and $30 or 750 South African rands, I think it is. Sorry, it's $40 for outside of South Africa, or 750 rands. If you look at the top left-hand side of the screen, I have been receiving exam payments. Thank you very much to all of you who have made payments, and apologies for not having acknowledged your payments by email individually. What I will do starting tomorrow is I will show the email addresses of everybody who has paid, so that if you have paid and I haven't listed your email address as paid, then you can please just shout. What you will note is some payments are coming in as $40, which is the required amount, and some are coming in at $37.63. Please, when you make payment using PayPal, please make sure that we receive $40. So I think you need to send about $42.37 so that we receive $40 because the either you take the charges on your side or you pay 42.37 so that if the bank charges from PayPal are taken by us, we will still receive $40. So thank you to those of you who have made payment, and especially thank you to those of you who have made payment such that $40 has been received on our side. A quick note to all the South Africans who are members of other umpires associations in South Africa. If you would like to write the exam online with Western Province Cricket Umpires Association on the 4th or the 6th of January, we need written permission from an executive member of your association. So you can either ask them to email training@wpcua.co.za directly, or you can forward an email from them to you stating that they are giving you permission to write the exam with us. Ideally, Cricket South Africa wants all Umpires Association members across the country to write their exams at their home associations. So if you are a member of KwaZulu-Natal Cricket Umpires Association, you should ideally be writing your level 3 exam in Durban at Kingsmead, being invigilated by the head of training or the training coordinator of KwaZulu-Natal Cricket Umpires Association. But if they are happy for you to write online with us, then we need an email from them stating that they give you permission to write with us. Please, this is extremely important, and you will not be allowed to write if you are a member of another association. If you don't send us the permission from your association, you will not be allowed to write with us. If you are merely a coach or a school teacher who is doing these levels on your own without being a member of any association in South Africa, you do not need permission from any association in South Africa. You simply need to send your level 2 certificate to training@wpcua.co.za, and you need to obviously pay the exam fee of 400 rands. I have received a lot of exam fees. Thank you very much. But not all of you sending your exam fees are sending your level 2 certificates or your highest certificate from wherever in the world you have received your highest umpiring certification. Please, ladies and gentlemen, we will not be making any exceptions. I know that a lot of you have done level 2 with us, and I do have your level 2 certificate somewhere in my archives, but please make it easy for us by sending your level 2 certificate to training@wpcua.co.za along with your proof of payment of exam fee, along with your preferred date for the exam. I hope all of those logistics are clear and you will all follow suit accordingly. I will now go into the chat box and look up all of the questions and comments that have been posted while we were presenting. Thank you once again for all of your answers to the quiz questions, and I hope those of you who got them wrong know where you have gone wrong and what the correct application of the law is. So Ilana asks, I just want to know, should this be given out if a batter gets hit on the foot and the non-striker went to consult with the striker without a dead ball being called? Should a fielder run the non-striker out? Would it be given out? Abdullah, we have a non-striker that I think is worried about the health of the striker having been hit on the foot. The non-striker has left his or her crease without either umpire calling and signaling dead ball for a serious injury when a fielder runs the non-striker out.
Ilana, thank you for your question. Firstly, the umpire needs to make the judgment call whether the injury to the batter was serious or not. If it is a possible serious injury to the batter, that is your call. And usually, injury to the foot, it's not seen as serious, but it's still your judgment call. So if it is your judgment call that it is serious, umpire needs to immediately call and signal dead ball. But looking at your scenario, and as I said, usually I would say 9 out of 10 cases, if the ball gets hit on the foot, it's not. I wouldn't say it is a possible serious injury. The non-striker needs to wait until the ball is dead. The non-striker cannot just leave their crease to go and consult. And in this scenario, the non-striker just leave the crease while the ball is still in progress. The non-striker can be run out. Ball is still live. Umpire didn't call and signal a dead ball. Non-striker can still be given out, run out in this scenario. Usually what happens, if the umpire didn't call and signal dead ball, you'll often find the non-striker asking the umpire, can I go consult, can I go have a look? If you then say yes, then the ball would then be dead, and then the fielding side cannot run out the non-striker. But to answer your question, non-striker needs to wait for the ball to be dead. Either gets permission from the umpire or hear the umpire call and signal dead ball before non-striker go and inspect his or her colleague. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Dula. Next question is from Mohammed Patel. If the batter is not offering a shot, can we award buys if the ball goes past the wicketkeeper and the batters cross and make good their ground at the opposite ends?
So Mohammed, you're touching on two separate subsection of the laws. One covers buys and one covers leg buys. To answer your question, I'm going to cover both. I'm going to start with what we've covered tonight, which was leg buys, and when can leg buys be awarded, and what criteria or conditions needs to be in place for leg buys to be awarded, and then the opposite, when leg buys not to be awarded. So leg buys, the conditions that needs to be in place for leg buys to be awarded. Ball that was delivered needs to strike anywhere. The ball needs to hit anywhere on the person. Doesn't always have to be, I know it says leg buys, but anywhere on the person, leg, shoulder, tummy, anywhere. If the ball strikes anywhere on the person or the protective equipment of the striker, and then the two criteria that needs to be met, needs to have played at the ball or try to avoid being hit at the ball. If these three conditions are met, hit the person or protective equipment, yes, played at the ball, or yes, try to avoid being hit by the ball, leg buys then can be awarded. Leg bias not to be awarded is just the opposite. It hit the person or protective equipment of the striker, but there was no attempt to play at the ball with the bat, or did not try to take evasive action. Then leg bias not to be awarded. So to summarize, the important when it comes to leg bias, it needs to hit the person or the protective equipment. And then you're either going to award leg bias or not going to award leg bias. When it comes to bias, now the law tells us bias, the ball that was delivered should not touch any part of the person or protective equipment or the bat of the striker. That is the criteria that should be taken into account when awarding leg bias. It should not have struck any part of the person or the protective equipment or the bat. And if it did not touch the bat or protective equipment or any part of the person, then bias can be scored. So those are the criteria that you need to take into account. Nowhere under the bylaw does it state you need to play a shot or don't play a shot. All the criteria that needs to be met when allowing bias is it should not strike the person anywhere, not touch the bat or the protective equipment. And just to give you an example, when it comes to bias, and you often find with players, and because they don't know the law, and if you can just visualize the scenario, bowler delivers the ball, batter shoulders arms, i.e. does not play a shot, but the ball does not touch the pad, nor does it touch the bat, nor does it touch the protective equipment of the striker. So remember, the striker didn't offer a shot. Now the ball goes past the bat, didn't touch protective equipment, didn't touch person or pad. Goes through the keeper's legs and they run. You'll often find players shouting, "No shot offered, no shot offered." They're not allowed to run. But when it comes to, in this scenario, yes, they are allowed to run. And why they are allowed to run is because this falls under the bias law. Because it didn't touch the person, it didn't touch the bat, nor the protective equipment, they are allowed to run, even though no shot was offered. One of the conditions that needs to be met when it comes to bias is no shot offered is not one of the conditions. No shot offered is a condition when it comes to leg bias. And with leg bias to be awarded or not awarded, it needs to touch the person or the protective equipment of the striker. Tom, I hope I answered the question. I know it was a long answer, but I hope I answered it.
Yes, definitely did, Dula. Thank you. Next question is from Stefan. In the law of leg bars not to be awarded because no shot was offered, what if the ball hits the batter on his shoulder and then goes to the helmet behind the wicketkeeper on the ground? Does it matter whether the ball was handled by a fielder or not before it makes contact with the helmet on the ground? I think the examples that you gave, Abdullah, there was a fielder that threw the ball in and hit the helmet. So what if the ball goes straight off the striker who's not playing a shot and then hits the helmet behind the wicketkeeper?
So thank you for your question. If in your scenario, if the ball hits, striker does not offer a shot, strikes the pad, goes through the keeper's legs, and hit the helmet behind the keeper. In this scenario, also the award of 5 penalty runs will not be given to the batting side. So whether a fielder touched the ball or did not touch the ball, that's not relevant in when it comes to awarding or not awarding of the 5 penalty runs. All that needs to be in place is batter didn't attempt to play at the ball with his or her bat, nor try to avoid being hit by the ball then, let's say, no shot off it, ricochet from the pad through the keeper's legs against the helmet. The ball becomes dead as soon as the ball hits the helmet, but no 5 penalty runs to be awarded to the batting side. And the reason is striker did not attempt to play at the ball with the bat. In the example that I use, here there was an intervention of the fielder, but the same principle will apply. So whether the fielder is involved or not involved, the principle of not offering a shot and the ball then hitting the helmet, whether it's straight or via a fielder, those 5 penalty runs not to be awarded to the batting side. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Dula. Next question is from Pradyot. I will take this one.
Yeah.
He asks, how do we remember, or is there any rule in both when the ball automatically becomes dead or when either umpire needs to call and signal dead ball? How do we remember if the ball is not to be counted as one of the over, or it is to be counted as a legal delivery in the over? So Pradyot, I've been asked this question a few times, and firstly, we need to obviously know that if a ball is not delivered, then it will not be counted as a legal delivery in the over, and it needs to be re-bowled or at least bowled. But what happens if it is bowled and it is then subsequently becomes dead? So in the law book, it tells you when a dead ball is not to be counted as a legal delivery in the over, and there are a few examples thereof. I think it is a bit confusing or difficult to remember because they are at different sections of the dead ball law. So what I will do is I will put a slide together that we will go through in our revision lecture on the 31st of December for when a ball is delivered and subsequently either automatically becomes dead or an umpire needs to call and signal dead ball. In what circumstances is it not to be considered a legal delivery in the over and needs to be re-bowled? So I will list those circumstances. So then you will have them all in one place where you can read and remember when a ball has been delivered and subsequently becomes dead. When is it that it will need to be re-bowled because it does not count as a legal delivery? So a brief answer to your question, Pradyot, is there is no easy way of remembering them, and there is no specific rule. You just need to have them listed, and that way you will be able to remember them easier if they are on one list. Okay. Next question, also from Pradyot. Is there a minimum time that a fielder must be out of the field before penalty time applies? If a fielder is out of the field for 5 minutes, then must he or she serve 5 minutes penalty time when they return to the field, or is there a minimum time of absentee before penalty time kicks in? Abdullah, this is obviously a playing condition that Pradyot refers to. Maybe you can take Pradyot through the law once again, and then the ICC playing conditions, please.
So Pradyot, yes, there is a difference how the law handles when it comes to penalty time and how playing conditions across the world, whether it's Test match cricket, T20, 50 overs, or even provincial cricket in South Africa. So according to the playing conditions, and I'll use Test match cricket as an example. The same playing condition will also find in 50 over ODIs as well as T20Is. The playing condition states a fielder needs to be off the field of play for more than 8 minutes before penalty time starts accruing, unless that fielder still owes penalty time. So in your example, if a fielder goes off for 5 minutes, and then let's say a fielder goes off at 10:30, comes back at 10:35, no penalty time to be incurred under the playing condition. If a fielder goes off at 10:30 and comes back at 10:38, no penalty time to be incurred according to the playing condition for international cricket as well as most provincial cricket across the world. It needs to be more than 8 minutes. If a fielder goes off the field and comes at 10:30 and comes back at 10:39, so now it's more than 8 minutes, that fielder needs to be on the field of play for the same amount of time that he or she was off, which is 9 minutes. So upon return at 10:39, that fielder can bowl again at 10:48. It's 9 minutes later. So that is according to playing conditions for most competitions across the world, where this more than 8 minutes condition applies. When it comes to the laws of cricket, and which we've covered tonight, and for exam purposes, you need to answer as per the laws of cricket, there are now no minimum in place. Your penalty time starts immediately. So according to the law, if you're off for 2 minutes, you need to wait 2 minutes before you can bowl again. If you're off for 1 minute, you need to wait for 1 minute. Off for 5, you need to wait 5 minutes before you can bowl again. So laws of cricket, and for the purposes of your exams, and that is how you need to answer it according to the laws of cricket. Fielder or injured fielder, penalty time starts immediately. Playing conditions across the world, there's this more than 8 minutes playing condition that's in place. Only if a fielder is off for more than 8 minutes, then they need to start serving penalty time. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Tula. Shadab Khan says that he attended Pakistan Cricket Board's Level 2 course last month, and the results have still not been issued. What can he do? Shadab, you will need to ask PCB to give you your results and your certificate before the 2nd of January 2025, because that is the deadline for payment of exam fees for Cricket South Africa's Level 3 exam. And of course, to qualify for the exam, you don't just pay the fee, you also need to submit your level 2 certificate from any cricket playing country, and please send it to training@wpcua.co.za. Please don't send your certificate on WhatsApp. I get over 150 WhatsApps a day. I easily lose track of certificates and important conversations on WhatsApp. Please email your certificate and email your proof of payment to training@wpcua.co.za. Thank you kindly. George Matthias has sent me $2.37 to make up the balance from the $40 that he paid, but it came through as $2.37 less because of the charges that PayPal take. George, I've just checked my account, and PayPal took 49 cents worth of charges from the $2.37. So I don't know how you can make sure on your side that you take the bank charges. I think there's a functionality, and albeit you made a $40 payment that I received $40. Maybe if you can type into the chat box how you made your payment, everybody can learn from that. George, please don't worry to pay another 49 cents or whatever the case might be. Just for other candidates going forward, if they can make sure that they pay $42.37 so that I receive $40, that would be much appreciated. Fitzroy Hales says, I didn't hear the full explanation. When a batter not offering a shot and the ball hits the helmet directly, ball being bowled, no shot offered, hit fielding side helmet on the ground. Fitzroy, your message came through at 8:01 South African time. Abdullah, I think, went through that detail again after that, so we're not going to go through it again. You can watch the recording of this lecture again. I will post it in the next couple of hours after the end of the lecture. Rahul asks, in instances when leg byes are not to be awarded because of no shot offered, I know the 5 penalty for the ball striking the helmet behind the wicketkeeper on the ground is not to be awarded. But does the ball still become dead when it strikes the helmet, or is it still in play for further action to happen? Rahul, the ball immediately becomes dead. 5 penalty runs are not awarded, but the ball immediately becomes dead. Okay. Another question from Rahul. At times, fielders just want to leave the field because they are tired and want to rest, but give a false injury reason, which as umpires we cannot confirm. Do we still allow a substitute, Abdullah? The famous strapping comes to mind when players want to go to the toilet. What do we do when we suspect that players are giving us a false reason for needing to leave the field?
Raul, I'm going to start at international and provincial level, which it's so much easy to if I can call it police this. So what happens at international level, where there are 4 umpires at any game, two on field, a TV umpire and a 4th umpire. So when a player leaves the field of play, they come to the umpire, informing umpire, I need to have my hamstring looked at. The player will then go off. The 4th umpire will then, after 2 overs, will physically go to the change room to go and inspect to see whether that injured fielder is getting treatment to his or her hamstring. So the 4th umpire will go to the change room, have a look. If the fielder is still getting treatment on the hamstring, the 4th umpire will then radio that message into the TV umpire, who in turn will inform the 4th umpire. Sometimes you'll get an update from the physio. The physio will say, yes, I'm still treating the hamstring. I've done a bit of, let's say, rubbing with my fingers. I'm now going to put maybe some ice on it. Give us maybe 5 more minutes. I should be able to give you another update. So whatever the update from the physio, you'll relay that to the TV umpire, who in turn will relay it to the on-field umpires. So yes, easy to or much easier to police at international level. So if we do, let's say the 4th umpire gets there and see the injured fielder is sitting with his or her feet up, relaxing, watching TV, maybe with a cigarette or just relaxing, the 4th umpire will then relay that message to the TV umpire, who in turn will relay it to on-field. On-field do have the power to send off the substitute, because the injured fielder is not getting any treatment. The fielder is just relaxing. So they will then send off the substitute, i.e. they will only field with 10 fielders. So yeah, easy to police at international or even provincial level, where we do have fourth or reserve umpires. If you go a bit lower down, not so easy to police. So because the law tells us if a player becomes injured or ill during the match, we to allow a substitute. That's what the law say. So now a player comes to you and say, umpire, my hamstring, I need to have it looked at. We are not medical doctors. We cannot deny a player treatment. So we cannot say, no, you are lying. You need to stay on the field. We need to allow the player treatment. So if a player comes to you and informing you that he or she is off, you'll allow player to get treatment, a substitute then to come on. If you don't have a reserve umpire, you can then sometimes I've had it in a club game where a player was off, saying I want to have treatment to my hamstring. But I saw the player next to the side of the field, not getting any treatment, just standing there talking to the players. I then asked the fielding captain, I see your players ask for treatment to the hammy, but I see your players not getting any treatment, chatting to the players. If UC is not back on next over, I'm sending off your substitute. And that player came back on next over. So I could handle that easily. But if the player is in the dressing room, it's not that easy to govern. You can ask the fielding captain after 2 overs, just give me an update. I see player X has been off for hamstring. Player's not back yet. Do you have an update? Yes, no. Just to give the fielding captain, to show him or her that you on this, you are aware, you're watching that injured player. You see, give me an update. UC needs to come back if they're not getting any treatment. So to answer your question, Rahul, the law tells us we must allow a substitute. We're not medical doctors. We don't know whether a player is injured or not. We allow a substitute, but we need to monitor it. At higher levels, it's much easier to monitor because there are reserve umpires. Lower levels, not that easy, but you need to try. Ask the fielding captain, give me an update. Can you see the player? If you can see the player, feet up, chatting to the other players, just get the fielding captain in saying, I see your player. If it's not on next over, I'm sending off the 12 man or the substitute. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Dula. Pradiot asks, if the ball hits the front of the pad and can be given out leg before wicket, but after hitting the front pad, it lodges between the leg and the back pad. In this situation, do we still call and signal dead ball? So Pradiot, or does the ball become dead? So Pradiot, the ball first hit the front pad when the ball was alive. So we need to make the LBW call. Is it out LBW or is it not out LBW? Yes, the ball then becomes dead afterwards, but if all the conditions are met for a leg before wicket dismissal, we need to give that striker out because the ball was not dead when it hit the front pad. I hope that makes sense. Abir, thank you very much for your PayPal advice. So Abir, when he makes payments, he sets us up as a payment to a friend or family. And that means that he is going to incur the bank charges. And that is why $40 came through in its entirety to our PayPal account. So if you are about to make payments for your exam using PayPal, use the option to pay to a friend or a family member, and that will ensure that $40 lands up in our PayPal account. Thank you, Abir. So Rahul says, thanks for the explanations about penalty time and also whether to allow a substitute or not. Yes, it is much easier to police at international level, but at times at club level, it's not that easy. Quite correct, Rahul. But as Abdullah mentioned, uh, transfer the pressure to the fielding captain, and as soon as you threaten that you will chase the substitute fielder off because the fielder who is supposedly getting treatment is not getting treatment, then the fielding captain will definitely take action. So Viswa asks, what about an urgent bathroom break? A fielder insists it's urgent to use the restroom. Can we allow a substitute in this case? So Viswa, I think the right thing in terms of humanity to do, yes, is to allow a bathroom break, but not according to law. You will not allow a substitute. So what we tell players when they tell us that they need to go off the field for a bathroom break, we tell them, okay, yes, we will allow you to go off the field and we will allow you a substitute. Um, but just officially for the record, you're not going off for a bathroom break. You should tell us that you're going off for strapping. And yes, I know this actually is encouraging players to lie, but unfortunately, that is the best way to get around the circumstance when it comes to the official reason for a player leaving the field. If he were to give us an official reason for a bathroom break, him leaving the field, then we are, according to law, not supposed to allow a substitute for him. So the official reason, as I mentioned to Abdullah earlier, the famous strapping reason is what is used by players to leave the field for a bathroom break and for them to be allowed a substitute. Uh, Please make sure that you keep an eye on that fielder, and tell him or her when they go off that they should be back within 2 overs, because a bathroom break longer than 2 overs is then considered a comfort break. Erfan, good interactions. Thank you very much for your regular attendance and interaction. Always much appreciated. Professor Atik from Namibia says bat and pad is not out, but if the decision is very close and in league matches they do not use DRS, how do we proceed with the decision? Prof, I assume you are talking about a LBW decision where it is bat first or maybe even bat and pad simultaneously. The best decision in that scenario is to give it not out. And if you're asked by the bowler or the fielding captain, why is it not out? Your simple reason is I'm not 100% sure that it was pad first. Okay. They will normally accept that reason. So Suraj says the presentation shared to us 1 week prior to the course and the one being presented have differences. Please advise if the updated one will be shared to us, and if yes, when. Suraj, yes, I did mention this in lecture number 2, that as and when we prepare for our lectures, we do add and edit slides just to make sure that we are presenting the best possible content and the latest videos available. So we will send the very updated presentation after the last lecture, because right now I can tell you I don't know what the slides are going to look like for the last lecture. Okay, so please be patient, enjoy the lectures, and you will get all the slides that we have presented over the 6 lectures after the 6th lecture. Prof. Atik and Rian and Suraj thank us for the lecture. We also thank all of you for your attendance and your interaction. I see no more questions or comments in the chat box. I see no hands up in the meeting room. I will take this opportunity to thank all of you again for your attendance and your interaction. We will reconvene again, same time, same place, same meeting link tomorrow. Thank you and good night.